about to go visit some of our beautiful friends. We're gonna do some snowboarding. I don't know how much snowboarding I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be doing some tubing, I'm sure. Just low rolls down the mountain. I'm gonna also see my parents, try to see them as much as I can, and I need to pick out some books, so I figured let's go through and pick out some books together. I have an idea of what I'm gonna read, and I just wanted to show you. So first and foremost, gonna read the Frosty the Snowman. No, I'm reading what the hell's his name? I'm gonna read some Robert Frost because I feel like it's the time. I'm not gonna really encounter snow in New York City, so I feel like I should read it in upstate New York, where there might be a possibility of snow. So there's that. I think I wanna read Butts. It's the time, you know? I'm ready to read Butts. I'm ready to read about booty. And should I bring another book, or should I hope and pray for the possibility of another book to fall into my vicinity? That's what I'm gonna hope and pray for. I think that might be the best option. I'm gonna be timid. I'm very timid with my choices, so. Anyway, look it. I wanna show you. Look at that. Look at my sock. No, look at that. That is success, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I'm gonna destroy it. I'm gonna destroy it. I'm gonna do it. I love it. I've been waiting to do this. My favorite part of doing a puzzle. The destroy. Master Destroyer. Whoa. Whoa. Folding her up like a good Rito. Good Rito. Yeah, baby. Really polite. Well, now she's a Rito that's having some trouble. Troubled Rito. And I'm spent.
This is my whip. This is my crib.
Whip? Crib. Oh, like stand next to your crib for size.
The entrance is on the other side.
Stand next to your crib for size. Oh, like stand next to your crib for size! Thoughts?
Not bad.
You want to go to the other bookstore? I'm trying to make this the least scandalous thing you've ever seen. I hope that's what's happening right now. I really don't mean to be crazy. I'm in a tub. I'm in a tub. How lucky am I? Really, I think one of life's greatest joys are tubs. I think just soaking around in warmth does wonders to the body, and I wish I had more access to it. I'm upstate, and I'm finding it very, very easy to read Robert Frost. Very, very easy. This isn't necessarily just his poems. It's a lot of his short stories as well, and his work primarily takes notice of the smaller things in life. The beauty of the mundane. The beauty in the things that we see every single day but really take no note of. The small exchanges that we have with people who don't seem like anything too important in our life, but they are. And I find that it's incredibly easy for me to fall into Robert Frost because a lot of the things that he writes about, this New England love that he has, I'm from that area. I actually had a chance to visit his home today. This is Robert Frost's home. He lived here from 1920 to 1929, where he wrote some of his most accomplished works, such as the Pulitzer Prize-winning compilation New Hampshire, which had the famous Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. I mean, you can see all around you the inspiration for a lot of his poems. The snowiness, the desolate nature, the abundant wildlife in this area. It's not open right now. It's not open, so we can't go in, but you can at least kind of see the basic landscape of what Robert Frost was working with. Maybe in the springtime we'll stop by and we'll give it a little love, but this is his home. It was built in 1629, so he didn't build it, but it's pretty stunning. What a guy. I like to think that this is also life-size. Big hands. What are your thoughts on Robert Frost?
He reminds me of JFK, the way he looks.
That's a pretty valid observation, Oleg.
Yep.
Wasn't that fun? Yes, he lived there for 9 years, but 9 years is still a pretty significant chunk of life, and he had notable works published there, so I mean, I understand where he's coming from, where the musings from a lot of these poems come from. And it made me kind of think, like, am I just very attracted to things that are about me? I mean, maybe. But I think the beauty of reading is that you can just fall into these worlds that you have no relationship with and you can still love them. But right now I feel like in my life I'm just reading a lot of exactly what pertains to me. Maybe there's a selfishness in my reading right now. I don't know. But Robert Frost is great. I'm really liking it. His words are just like flowers, you know, sprouting. So. Oh my God. Boop. Hey girls! Girlies. Oh my God, I love you so much. Who's got a stinky nose? Who's got a stinky nose? Oh, I love you so much. You're so... Oh my God. Oh my God. Butts. We're talking about butts today. Name me a better thing to talk about. I'll wait. I will wait. No, we're talking about butts because I am reading Butts, a backstory by Heather Radke. Great cover, really eye-catching, and I think that the advertising behind this, somebody deserves a raise. Somebody absolutely deserves a raise, and I'm 100% behind them if they ask for it. I am about 100 pages in. It's starting with a lot of history, which I appreciate. It's talking about Sarah Bartman, who I didn't even know who she was. She was a West African native who was taken into Paris and kind of became a spectacle because of her larger assets, which is a hereditary trait within the particular group of people that she was born into. So that was really interesting. And I really got into a deep dive of research about Bartman and what that particular genetic trait entailed, what it was about. And I'll put the name right here. Anyway, I appreciate the take on this book. I'm going to have a lot more opinions about it, I think, once I finish it. Kind of feels like a very brief article, something that we're meant to just kind of highlight the key words and then go through the rest of the article and say that we read it. That's kind of what this feels like, but I am going to probably finish it within the next couple of days. Happy about that. I'm also listening to When Breath Becomes Air, which is devastating, really devastating. I think we're all fully aware of that if you know what this book is about. This is about a neuroscientist diagnosed with cancer. This is all true, and he writes this within his dying days, essentially, or at least his dying months. This was published posthumously, so you definitely know where this is all going. But I think what's really impressive about this book, aside from its very, very basic breakdown of medical terms and the whole medical sphere from someone who is so brilliant and able to assess the situation from a very kind of mechanical mindset, is that the author just looks at this situation and is himself trying to learn from it with the reader. He's not giving a very definitive account of what it feels like to experience impending death, but he's trying to still learn from this situation. And that to me is really fascinating because we do know what happens to him. He unfortunately does pass away from the illness, but it's so smart. And I think he himself wanted to become either a writer or a philosopher. He talks a lot about philosophy and the impact of reading in his growing up. But I think it's really important for readers to also look at the emphasis of reading to kind of help form your brain in this very peaceful, analytical sense, if that makes sense. I think that this is great. I mean, how can you not appreciate this book, at least, for what it is? And that's that. Ooh, stop that. Hello. I'm back in New York City. Hell yeah, I am, baby. Yes, I am. This is just quick aside note, but I have a really bad back. Not in the sense that it's like a sports related injury or anything, but I hold a lot of tension in my upper back and it's just filled with knots. So I found the most relieving thing to do for that is to just sit on my yoga mat, put a yoga block on my head and just have a ball, a lacrosse ball, just sit right there in the knots. And then I just read with my hands up in the air. Let's do the thing. Let's talk about the Butts book. Interesting. What an interesting read that this was. First of all, I read this in about 2 days, and that wasn't actively being persistent in my reading. That was just casually picking it up and diving into it when it was available to me. Now, this was really interesting. I think I mentioned previously that it starts with a lot of the history of kind of the glorification of the butt, focusing most on Sarah Bartman. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. That, I have to say, was probably one of the highlights of the book. Again, it was something that I was entirely unfamiliar with, so I was very happy to learn about and to kind of see how the shape of butts came into the forefront of popularity. So that I thought was great. And then Radke goes into flapper history and sort of the garments, how garments were made to fit bodies and shapes. And that is where I kind of was like, okay, so this isn't going to focus just on butts. It's going to be all about the infrastructure of butts, all about how shapes are evolving much more than butts, because you can be a shapely individual and not have a butt. Okay, so we're deviating from the actual butt's backstory, and we're just going to be kind of forming much more of a conversation about shapes in general changing and being influenced, and how that is kind of rooted into our subconsciousness, which is fine, great, whatever. It goes into this whole industry of trying to shape the butt and trying to understand why women feel very guilty about their behinds. And that was where I kind of started to lose interest, because it started to steep much more into the 2000s. The 2010s, which I am very old and I remember the 2010s. Radke is very, very specific in referencing a lot of magazine articles that were seen as sort of detrimental to the health of bodies, being like, why do men prefer big butts? Big butts, are they the new bust? And these sort of, very gimmicky titles. But then the second half of the book, it feels like it is a People article. She's already choosing these very, very polarizing figures such as Kim Kardashian, Paris Hilton, and Miley Cyrus to have these conversations about, which, I mean, if you are even remotely aware of any sort of culture of the 2010s, you already know about these stories. I feel like it's a very, very cheap way of kind of elongating this loose narrative that she's creating within this book, and to me, it doesn't really work. It feels clickbaity, which is kind of something that she's almost ardently pushing against, this sort of fetishization of things that seem like they're just to kind of gawk at. It started fine, but I think it just lost a lot of its momentum and lost a lot of its clarity. There's one moment in this book that I can't tell if it's supposed to be humor or if it's an actual scientific aside. And this is just to kind of set the tone of the overall book for me. She's talking about Bartman's behind and also her vulva, and about the association between the two. This association between vulva and butt may seem strange because the two body parts are so different and have such radically different functions. Asterisk. But in the scientific literature of the era, these two most intimate parts of a woman's anatomy are consistently conflated. Okay, so where the asterisk is, it says, there are ways that the butt and the labia are still linked today. Perhaps the best example is the peach emoji. What? Is that a serious testament? Perhaps the best example is with the peach emoji, which can be a way to represent either the butt or the labia, although it is most commonly associated with the butt. Is that an actual aside that warranted an asterisk? Read it if you want, just a really quick read. And you'll learn a lot of things that, you didn't necessarily understand about bodies in general, but I don't know, didn't do it for me. And then I'm still reading Robert Frost. I'm having just like, a tea, and in my head I'm having a scone as well, and I'm just raking leaves that aren't even here. I'm building a cabin. That's what I feel like when I'm reading Frost's works. It's a little bit weird to read this when there's no snow and like deer in my backyard. We're gonna have to make do in the city, and I'm just reading this in the morning because I feel like that's the freshest way to do it. Is anybody watching Physical 100? I'm just curious. I'm obsessed with this show. I also didn't know that on Netflix you could dub over voices. Oh, I'm obsessed. I am obsessed. And with the English dubbing over, they were working overtime to make sure that those characters were, really representative. They all had personalities in the dubbing. I already know who won because when I watch a TV show, I look up the ending usually within the first episode because I have to know. Not with movies, obviously not with books. TV shows, I always look at the ending. And then I continue to watch it. Like I'm shocked at the end what happens. I just have to know. This is the front of the house, and I would have filmed the entirety of my speech in the front, but there's a highway right behind us, and of course right now it's not that active, but it kind of breaks the quiet of everything.